You were in charge of branding. Star, you're fired.
You're fired. You're fired.
Fired. Thank you. Thank you, Donald Trump.
God, I remember that so well. Even the money, 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 money stuck in my head. I used to watch it all the time. And it's so hard to imagine for that reason today. But Donald Trump, he wasn't always so polarizing. In fact, he once had a pretty broad appeal. I mean, turn the calendar back about, 20 years? And Trump was a pop culture phenomenon, largely fueled by his hit NBC reality series, The Apprentice. Well, now a former top NBC marketing executive is pulling back the curtain and expressing his regrets for propping up the Donald. In an op-ed for U.S. News & World Report, John D. Miller writes, "I want to apologize to America. I helped create a monster." Miller admitted NBC's fluffed-up image of an ultra-successful businessman was, quote, highly exaggerated, and categorized it as fake news. He also offered up some behind-the-scenes details, like Trump's alleged pitch to have a black versus white season of The Apprentice. Miller says his first reaction, WTF. Joining me now, the man who wrote that op-ed, former NBC Chief Marketing Officer, John Miller. John, good to see you. The op-ed really thought-provoking. I mean, can you tell us about the Donald Trump you knew back in those Apprentice days and how you spun his image?
Well, the conceit of the show was that he would be a successful businessman and that people were trying to do that. The idea was you didn't win a date, you won a career. And the show, I didn't produce the show, but I did produce the promos for the show, or lead the team that did the promos for the show. The whole idea was that you would get a chance to be with a top business executive, and then you would win a prize, and then for a full year you would be with him. And the thing is that not many CEOs actually have the time or the desire to have somebody that was a reality show star come on and be in their inner circle. Donald Trump had no problem with that. He had the time, he liked the adoration. And so in order to make it successful, we had to make sure that the idea of you were going in for a big businessman. And in truth, he had bankrupt 4 of his businesses and was not all that successful. But in order to make the show a success, we had to make him as successful as we possibly could. And that was the conceit of the show. And you know, when he was just a businessman and it was just a TV show, that was one thing. We were doing it for television. Quite honestly, when you're promoting television, you exaggerate an awful lot of things. As I said in the article, we're making mountains out of molehills all the time. We did that. Sometimes they were good shows, sometimes they were bad shows. But when we marketed them, they were always the best show you had ever seen, until, of course, you had seen it. And in this particular case, as we're now only less than 20 days to the election, I simply felt it was very important, pursuant actually to your last guest who talked an awful lot about the economy, where people were thinking that Donald Trump was an expert in the economy, when we effectively made him seem like a great businessman when he was really a small businessman that had a bunch of different LLCs. And if they went bankrupt, he could protect them by making them sort of weeding them out. Wow. And to a large degree, it was a creation for a TV show, and we were very good at it. And some people say, well, I didn't see the TV show. And I said, well, I bet you saw the promos. Sure. And the promos were like little messages that I called little fake news messages that covered America like a snowstorm. And
well, if you didn't see those promos as well, you would have certainly heard Trump talk about it, because you actually write about it in the piece, how Trump used to constantly lie about the show's ratings. Yes. And if you take a little bit, not even a small leap, to think about those tactics, yes, helping him develop his now political playbook, right?
Well, yes. I mean, one of the things that I noticed in dealing with him very early in the show, he would call me first thing, and I was on the West Coast at that point. He was on the East Coast, and so I was pretty sure that he had seen the ratings before. I had the ratings in front of me. I was probably not his first call, probably his 5th or 6th, but he'd call up and say, "Hey, John, how we do?" And I would say, "Very well," because we did do very well. We just not number. We said #1 show on television, and I would say, "We did very well." And he would say #1 show on television. He would continue to repeat that, and he would repeat that well into the 2nd or 3rd season. And quite honestly, then he would do that for a press tour and say #1 show on television. And for the people who were covering television, they knew the ratings as well as anyone. And so when he was saying #1 show on television, they would just sort of laugh. But he would be undeterred in that regard and would continue saying it, feeling that eventually someone would believe it. And I guess in America, many people did.
Well, many people who are in the electorate often looked at that success or the purported success of his business, the acumen that was illustrated or displayed as part of the magic of television, and thought that must translate to leadership. And he certainly talked about this a great deal. By the way, I earlier talked about this, Trump pitching this black versus white season of The Apprentice.
Yeah.
And earlier this year, my colleague Abby Phillip interviewed former Apprentice contestant Kwame Jackson on how he felt Trump treated his black contestants. Listen to this.
I've never known Mr. Trump to be comfortable around black people. I think he might be comfortable around a certain sliver of black people, a certain type of black people, but I've never known him to be comfortable in our general company. I remember when I was on The Apprentice, there was always this stilted interaction between us where he couldn't quite figure me out. I was that, unicorn Negro.
I mean, look, outside of the black versus white idea, did you ever see moments that Kwame is speaking about or that gave you pause when it came to Trump's judgment or evaluation of people?
Well, to a degree, although my interaction with him was an awful lot about marketing the show, so I didn't get too much involved in the show. But I will say that when he suggested that to me, he didn't seem to have a sense that it would be inappropriate, or that advertisers would reject it, or that it didn't seem to be correct in that sort of the culture we live with today.
What did he think would be the result of that in terms of how people would view it?
He thought it would be very noisy. He thought everybody would be talking about it. He thought that it maybe actually would help the ratings. And what I said to him in the brief minute when he said that, not wanting to insult him because that was basically something you didn't want to do because then you would get the same insults you got from anybody else. So you found a way to compliment him. And what I would say was, well, I can understand why you said that because that's a really noisy idea. Everybody would be talking about that. There would be headlines everywhere. On the other hand, no advertiser, you make most of your money off of the integrations in the shows itself. He made some on salary, but he makes most of it from the integrations because the show, a company was featured as part of the integration of the actions between the two teams of the apprentices. And that's what he paid. They would pay a significant amount of money for that because unlike a commercial that you could DVR or you could skip, this was part of the show and would not be. So he would get a significant amount of money for that. And what I told him was that no advertiser is going to want to be an integration partner in your show, and that's how you get paid. And so I tried to rationalize it to him with something he would understand, which was money. And then he sort of huffed, and my wife was with me at that particular wrap party. She asked her, and she said, "I think it's wrong." To which he just sort of decided to move on. And then eventually it went to the program people, and the idea was shot down, and we never really made that. But that was sort of my integration with him. And so it was more about the
marketing, the provocateur notion of that noisiness.
The notoriety and the noisiness that would come from it.
That's very telling in terms of where we see right now. John Miller, a fascinating piece. I encourage everyone to read it. Really great. Thank you so much to hear from you.